I'll tell you what,
You tell me.
I have discovered a menopause blanket. We need to offer it on TikTok. It's
What is
so
it?
good. It's so good. It's like a cooling blanket, but
Right.
it's really thin, but it's like a silky material on one side and then like soft cotton on the other
What's its purpose?
to keep your body
Regulate your
cool.
temperature.
Yeah, stop you
Oh,
getting these like super hot flushes because I can't sleep.
oh really?
Yeah, it wakes me up.
Oh, everybody says that. Everybody says that the hot flushes wake you up and things like that. Not me.
No, nothing wakes you up, mate.
Nothing wakes me up. I sleep like the dead.
No, it does. It really wakes me up and I get hot and sweaty and I'm throwing the duvet off and then obviously like 10 seconds later you're freezing.
Yeah. I
But
do
yeah,
do
it's
that. I
good.
think like it probably semi wakes me up because I do like throw the cover off a lot and then immediately grab it back and put it back on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't like rouse rouse me out of a sleep or anything. I
Hmm.
go straight back to sleep.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad you're
can
not
get
being
up,
disturbed.
go downstairs, turn the light on, let the dog out, have a conversation, make myself a drink, have a wee, go up, go straight back to sleep.
Straight out.
Literally seconds.
Yeah. No, I struggle with it. But yeah, these blankets are so good. So anyone out there that's suffering with hot flushes, menopause, whatever, Sarah can sort out a link or whatever. Because if you're
I'll
gonna
have a
get
look.
it, if you're gonna get it, like can you get it through us? Because then
Yeah.
we benefit. I can't even get it myself through us.
Where did you buy it from?
Amazon.
Yeah, it probably won't be able to do it on TikTok if it's on Amazon.
No, there'll be other versions, I'm sure.
Right.
We'll sort it out.
Worth sort out.
It's well worth it though. Well worth it if you're suffering with menopause. Or if you just live in a hot country. If you live in a hot country and struggle to sleep because you get hot, it's so weird. It's like a magic blanket. And it just as you've got it on you, you can feel it radiating like cold onto you. But it's not an unpleasant cold. It's like just a little bit. Like if you stop and like think and you think, yeah, it does feel like it's cold. And then if you touch it, like I'll have it over me when we're sitting watching telly. And like if Claire puts her hand on it, she's like, oh, it feels really cold to the touch. But
So strange.
it's nice. Yeah, it's really weird, but
Cool. Well, I'm glad you found something that makes you so incredibly happy.
thanks.
Because do you know what makes our listeners happy?
Mark.
Random blams. Go.
So I thought today I would do a a very random blam. So I have got a couple of things that are strange facts that I found on the internet. One is, and you might want to try it, Sarah. You can pinch your own elbow at the end as hard as you can, and it won't hurt.
I know, me
I
literally.
tried it.
It might have been last night or the night before. I can't remember. I said to Josie, pull my elbow skin. She just pulled it as hard as she
Didn't
could.
even ask why. Just like,
No, pull my elbow skin because I quite enjoy it. Like, I
oh.
don't know why. I like my elbow skin being pulled, but I was like, pull my elbow skin. She just yanked on it. And then we took turns pulling each other's elbow skin. Doesn't even hurt.
Doesn't even hurt. There you go. So if you guys want to partake in Sarah and Josie's weird antics, you can. The second one is a shrimp's heart is in its head.
Yes.
It is physically impossible for a pig to look up at the sky. A
Why?
crocodile,
Oh, because they don't have like a neck.
yeah, wouldn't
You go
like
back.
I think their bone goes all the way
Oh,
along and then only only curves down for them to like snuffle.
Yeah.
A crocodile cannot stick out its tongue. I think we might have done that one before, you know. It's familiar now I'm saying it. Wearing headphones for just 1 hour can increase the bacteria in your ear by 700 times.
Disgusties.
I bet our ears are rank.
Proper rank.
Almonds are a member of the peach family.
What, not nut?
Peach.
Didn't know that.
And a cat has 32 muscles in each ear.
Oh.
They must be diddy little muscles.
Yeah.
That's
Susie's
it.
got no muscles in her ears because they don't work.
Oh,
She don't listen to no one.
no.
My random plan,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
just found, is really good.
Hmm.
Really interesting. So you're going to disagree, but
All right.
there is a phenomenon known as third man syndrome, in which people undergoing traumatic, life-threatening experiences feel the presence of an unknown party, such as a spirit, offering advice or comfort.
I know who that is.
Yeah. It goes round to everyone.
It's Mothman, isn't it?
Mothman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Third man syndrome.
And they feel like someone's there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That third woman syndrome. That is
Mhm.
trickier to say, but
People do always say they feel like a loved one is telling them it's not their time yet or something like that. I think it's your brain just going, it's all right. Don't worry.
do you think maybe you might be schizophrenic?
Maybe. It's not the first time I've been questioned.
Yeah, I think that's more likely what it is. Yeah.
All right then.
Don't know. Who knows? Third man, ghost,
I don't think it's the same
Mothman.
one for everyone. I think it's a figment of people's imaginations. So it's different to every. It's not the same person going
Listen,
around.
Mothman has many faces. They're all fuzzy, and they all
They're all
look
moth-like.
slightly moth-like. Yeah, but he's
All right
always
then.
he's there for you. He's there for you. All
I
right,
think
Lolly.
that's it. Random Blams done.
Done.
Josie's got a bone to pick with you.
Oh, what of it? Come at me.
She listened to the entirety of the episode, the Rougher Mirage,
Yeah.
including the end credits, and she said I waited all the way through the end and there was no surprise.
I know. I like that's because I'm keeping you all on your toes. That's why.
She was fuming.
Yeah.
She's like, I listened through all of that shit. There was nothing.
There was nothing. Yeah, sometimes I don't. There's more than one where there is nothing at the end, but
Yeah, I know.
yeah. I just couldn't find anything that I wanted to put at the end.
We've not been incredibly funny recently, have we?
We haven't really, have we?
No.
We need to step that shit up.
All right.
I mean, today's not going to be a barrel of laughs, I'm telling you now.
I'm excited. You've made me really excited for this episode because I don't know what it is.
It's a random episode, but honestly, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, I'm covering it.
Okay.
That's it. But it is going to be a two-parter for
Great.
Everyone will have seen, I'm sure, by now, that it says part 1.
Yeah.
So
normally insinuates there's
you will all
part.
know. Yeah. Yeah. I'm guessing it's going to be 2 parts. I don't think it'll go into 3. I'll try and get all the information in. But you know, when you research a case and then you just keep finding more and more, and then you think, oh, should I add that in? I don't know.
It's like when I did The Girl with No Name. That turned out to be 3 parts.
Yeah,
and they were long
huge.
and they weren't short.
No, it was good sections though,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It
different sections of her life.
Very well fit into 3 different parts, but
thank you.
very good. I like that one a lot. All right. Well, let's
Come
get
in.
on with it. All right. Morning.
Morning. Oh, I'm a bit
Morning.
raspy. Sorry.
Morning.
Frog in my throat.
Yeah, I thought my co-host was Mothman then. Morning. Oh, well, morning, morning.
Watto!
What, old bean? What, Grandpa? What, take a pew. Um, so this episode today is The House of 1,000 Corpses.
Right.
And it comes with a trigger warning. The episode contains some graphic descriptions of corpses. I will talk in some detail about the condition of cadavers, and I will also be covering details and descriptions about cremations. If this is something you are not comfortable with or you may find upsetting, please skip this episode. Also, it is a little bit gross in places. So if you are eating, I suggest maybe pause it or listen to it another time or skip the episode altogether if you want. But in order to give you guys a good picture of what this looked like, I feel that I have to explain it and describe it, and it's rank. Are you ready? You look
I'm ready.
you
Because I
look
don't think I've heard of this. I don't know the details.
well, considering it all started in the 2000s.
What?
No. Um I was surprised that I'd never heard of it either. Although, I mean, it's not in this country, but still. So it starts in October 2000. A man named Gerald Cook is out on his route for work, and Gerald is a propane delivery guy. So he drives one of those big trucks with the big tank on the back.
Oh.
And in fact, this was a 3,000 litre tank that he had. And he is arriving on this particular day at the crematorium called Tri-State. And Tri-State Crematorium is on a plot of land that spans around 16 acres.
Where
And
is it? Is it
oh,
America?
all right, I
Ah,
was just about to
sorry.
say jumping in. And it is situated in Noble, Georgia, America. Noble is a small place with pretty much just like farms and small outbuildings, houses, things like that. And it's home to around 300 people, and that's it. It's when I say town, I use that term loosely. There's no high street, there's no shops or schools or anything like that. It's
Oh,
just
goodness.
just pretty much where people live, really. Um, but there is, however, a crematory, and it's a bit weird because I looked for the difference between, because it's always called a crematory, but I've always known it as a crematorium.
Yeah, when you said that, my brain was like, that's not right. And then I was
Yeah,
thinking,
I know.
it's symmetry.
No, not cemetery.
What's the difference between a cemetery and a...
So a cemetery is where people are buried,
Yeah,
and a crematorium is where people are cremated.
cremated. Right,
Yeah.
okay.
But what I couldn't find was the difference between calling it a crematory and a
Crematorium.
crematorium.
It
Yeah,
could just be our way of...
it's I read up the description, but to be honest, it didn't make any sense to me. It was like a crematory is where people are cremated, and a crematorium is where the furnace is where they're cremated. And I was like, what's the difference? I don't know. If someone wants to explain it to me, I'm more than happy to hear it because I couldn't find it out. So anyway, the crematory or crematorium used to be busy and like a beautiful building. There was always a lot of people going in and out. It was always well taken care of. And it was a beautiful place to take any loved one who had passed away. But on this day, as Gerald approaches the building, he notices that it's looking rather dilapidated and uncared for. There are weeds growing everywhere. There's old broken down vehicles, rusty hearses that are just sort of falling apart, rubbish thrown around all over the grounds. And the most unsettling is that he could see that there were like old caskets, and we tend to refer to them as coffins.
Mm.
But there were like just sort of caskets and that just kind of laying around, not like propped up out the front on display or nothing like that. It was just like they'd kind of been slung around all over the place. Like there was trees over there, and you could see these trees with all long grass and weeds growing up, but in amongst it you could just see like an old coffin laying there, and it just looked a little bit abandoned, the whole place. And Gerald had not, like as I said, he hadn't been to this site before, so he didn't know if anyone was going to come out and greet him and show him where the propane tank is. But there was just no one, that no signs of life anywhere. And Gerald started to feel a little bit creeped out by this place, and he began to feel very uneasy. And he said that he just had that feeling of like, I just want to fill this tank as quickly as I can and get out of here. And the reason that he was actually there was because the guy that was supposed to be delivering to the crematorium was too freaked out to go. And he said, no, I don't want to. So Gerald kind of stepped in at the last minute and went, all right, well, yeah, I'll do it.
That's crazy that they're willing to drive a giant tankard full of explosive, flammable gas that could
Yeah,
ignite at any minute or at any collision, but he won't drive to a crematorium.
yeah, yeah. It's a weird. I guess it's a weird crematorium. Like maybe this guy's been there before and he thought, no, I'm not going back there. It's creepy. But so anyway, so Gerald's thinking, right, I've got to find where this tank is now. So he kind of stops his truck, and there's the main building of the crematory or the crematorium, and then there's like a couple of big like barn type buildings, quite large sheds, things like that. So there was a lot of outbuildings, and he thinks, oh, I'm going to have to wander around to try and find this tank now. So he starts to walk about, and he's looking around and he thinks, no tank behind there, and carries on walking. And he wanders behind one of these abandoned looking larger outbuildings. Excuse me. Larger outbuildings. And he can see a small tractor with, like with the sort of scoop on the front. And it looked like it had been driven along with its scoop kind of down and pushed a load of ground debris into a pile by like where the trees were, and then stopped. And he just, for some reason, he just couldn't stop looking at this little tractor and the pile of debris. And he started wandering across. And when you get that feeling where you just feel like maybe you look round and you think there's someone standing looking at you, and you kind of look again, and then you think, oh no, it's like a tree stump, or it's like a funny little fence or something like that. And he kind of had that feeling. So he was staring at this pile of debris. And he wandered closer and closer, looking. And the thing that he was focused on, that he thought, that looks like a foot. As he got closer, he realised it was a foot. And this pile was in fact a pile of bones and what looked like body parts. He could clearly see arms, legs, and what looked like torsos, some with skin still on and others just bones. Gerald felt instantly like he was going to throw up. He feels this huge wave of nausea wash over him, and he feels a cold shiver rush through his body. Dizziness overcame him, and he stood there and kind of stumbled, but he couldn't move. He was frozen in fear. And then he hears a voice shouting from somewhere behind him, saying, "Gas man, gas man." Gerald thinks, that's me. He turns, and over by his truck, he can see a large man standing and looking around. And he can tell that he's searching for Gerald. He's wondering where the hell the gas man's gone. Now, this man is big. He's big built. He's over 6 foot tall. He's young. He's got a bald head, but neat, tidy beard, kind of one of those little ones that goes round your lips like a full goatee.
Mm-hmm.
He was young, black guy. This man was in fact Brent Marsh. Gerald panics and thinks, I don't want this guy to see that I've noticed that there's like a pile of body parts behind one of his buildings. So he really quickly runs from the little tractor back over to the corner of this outbuilding, and then slows down and then casually kind of wanders out and says, "Oh, hi, I was just seeing if your tank was back there." Brent stands there and points over in another direction with this proper stoic look on his face and says, "The tank's over there." Gerald was doing his best to be super nonchalant and as he filled the tank, and Brent stood and stared pretty much at Gerald the whole time that he was filling the tank. Gerald swallowed hard as he mumbled to himself and started sort of fiddling with the gas pipe and looking at his meter and yeah, okay, yep, just a little bit more, and yeah, I think that should do it, blah, blah, blah. And he felt like this tank was taking like years to fill, the whole time keeping Brent kind of in his peripheral. When he finished filling the tank, Gerald said thanks, hopped in his truck, locked the doors, and drove off down the driveway. He felt that he was in a total daze, wondering if he had really seen what he'd seen. But he knew he had. He knew he'd got a good look at it. He could clearly see that there were hands, arms, legs, feet in this pile. Gerald headed straight back to his office and told his boss what he'd seen. His boss said, "Strike a light, governor." No, he didn't. His boss said, "Bloody hell, let's phone the local sheriff." So the sheriff, he phoned Sheriff Steve Wilson. And I will refer to him as Sheriff Wilson. So Gerald's boss went and saw Sheriff Wilson and told him everything that Gerald had said he'd seen at Tri-State. Sheriff Wilson kind of thought, yeah, I mean, it's a crematorium. Like they take dead bodies there. Maybe they'd just fallen behind with some of the cremations. Maybe they'll catch
Where does
up.
he think that they're kept before they're cremated?
Listen,
In a pile next to the digger.
these people in Georgia are so chilled, and they're so nice. Well, I mean, not all of them, but they just seem so nice because they were like, we didn't want to make a big thing about it in case there was
A
like,
reasonable explanation.
yeah, and the crematory was not to, not at fault or anything like that, because that kind of rumor could ruin someone's business, and we're not about to do that. So they were really like respectful of everyone and the businesses and things like that. So they kind of thought, yeah, well, I mean, it is possible um, that maybe they had fallen behind with it, and they needed propane um, for the
Fire.
furnace. So he sort of thought, yeah, I mean, maybe they'd sort of put them out back in the shade or something like that. Because I mean, this is Georgia; it's like it's hot. Maybe they'd put them out the back over to the side, or something like that. But he didn't think there was anything too sinister about it anyway. But anyway, Sheriff Wilson said, all right, I'm gonna send a few deputies out to check, see what they can see, that kind of thing. But apparently the deputies came back and said, nah, it's all good, it's all fine. Personally, knowing what I know about this case, I don't think they went at all. And if they did, they would have driven onto the drive, possibly driven around, like as in turned the car around and driven back out. But personally, I'm not sure that they went, and I definitely know they didn't do any kind of search. Sheriff Wilson knew the Marsh family. The Marsh family, so Brent Marsh was the guy that was standing with Gerald. Um, the Marsh family owned the crematorium, and they'd lived in that area from the days of slavery. Clara Marsh, who is Brent's mother, was well known in that area. She was a local school teacher, and in her working days, she was well liked, well respected. Brent's mother and father lived a few 100 feet from like the crematory, but on the same land, on the 16 acres. The crematory was previously run by Brent's father, Ray, and Ray Marsh was a super self-motivated guy, and by all accounts, so was his father before him. He started many good businesses, and he was always looking for like the next money-making idea, and he saw them like everywhere. Ray's father was also this way because he was like, as I said, his father before him was a successful businessman as well. Ray's grandfather, yeah, so Ray's grandfather, so Brent's great grandfather, started a sawmill like years and years before, and this gave pretty much like everyone in the area jobs. So they were a well liked and well respected family going back generations. The mill ran for many, many years before closing in the 1960s. In 1982, Ray, Brent's dad, found out that if anyone needed to be cremated, they would have to be driven all the way to Atlanta, which was about like 2 hours. So Ray thought, we're in a good spot here, like logistically and like financially. So he went out and he spent thousands of dollars and bought a huge furnace. And so the crematorium in Noble was born. He had the plan that when he was too old to continue doing the cremations, he could then pass the business on to his son, Brent. The crematorium was named Tri-State because the small town of Noble is tucked in the corner between, like, of Georgia, between like Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. So obviously, like, the three states makes it Tri-State, because they would be the place where all three states would take their business to, to do the cremations.
I bet they were busy as well then.
Super busy, super busy. So yeah, so that's why they called it Tri-State. And so near the beginning of Tri-State operating, still in the 1980s, Ray had visited one of his fellow Noble residents to ask a favour. The particular resident was the father of no other than Gerald, Gasman.
Gasman Gerald.
Gasman Gerald. And Ray had shown up at Gerald's dad's to ask if he could borrow his little tractor. And Gerald has got memories of this. Like, he remembers Ray coming over and speaking to his dad, and Gerald was kind of standing as a little boy, like maybe, I don't know, like 6 years old. And Ray said, "Can I borrow your little tractor?" And he explained that they'd had a body delivered that needed to be cremated, but it was too big and too heavy for them to carry into the furnace. So could he please borrow the tractor so that he could actually move this guy from, like, outside where he'd been dropped off to inside? And Gerald's dad said, "Well, you can, but that tractor cannot drive on gravel or loose dirt. So I don't think it'd be any good to you because you wouldn't be able to drive it," And Ray was like, yeah. And then Ray said, kind of like to himself, but out loud so that, like, Gerald and his dad could hear him. And he went, "I'll have to cut him into pieces and then carry him in that way." Yeah,
How we do things.
I'll probably do that because I'll have to burn him in pieces anyway. And Gerald explained that the reason that Ray had said, "I'll have to burn him in pieces anyway," was because that Ray was scared of a large body like that burning all at once would possibly set the whole furnace ablaze. Because fat is very flammable. So if you've got a body that's got a massive amount of fat, if you burn it all at once, obviously it kind of then ignites all this fat at once, raises the temperature way too high, and it would burn the furnace down and then obviously ruin everything. So yeah, so Gerald remembers being a bit freaked out by that. Like, what? So he's just going to go home and, like, cut a body to pieces and burn it a piece at a time? That's messed up, man. But yeah, so a year later, after Gerald's first horrifying visit where he saw that pile of bones and body part and feet and stuff, to Tri-State, he was back again for another delivery. On his way to Tri-State, Gerald's office kept calling him and asking, "When are you going to be there? When are you going to be? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? What time?" And they left him a message, a voicemail saying, "Mr. Marsh wants to know what time you're going to be there because he wants to meet you when he gets there, when you get there." And Gerald was like, well, I don't know. I don't go regularly enough to know how long it will take me. I don't know. It depends on the roads, blah, blah, blah.
The days before sat navs when it told you your estimated arrival time.
Exactly. He had no ways then that he could log into on his iPhone. But either way, when Gerald rocks up, there is no one to be seen anywhere. So he knows where the tank is this time, and he thinks, I'm not going around looking for piles of body parts. So he gets to where he needs to be. He gets the hose out. He walks the hose over to the tank, connects it up, and starts filling the tank. As he's standing there, he's thinking, I feel really on edge. I need to just like relax. You know, the police came down, checked it out. It was fine. Get out of your own head, for God's sake. Takes a deep breath. Looks round to his left. What he sees, once again, turns his stomach. That old dizzy, nausea feeling that he experienced a year ago during his last visit was back, and tenfold. About 9 or 10 feet from where he was standing, leaning up against a heap of rubbish, was a decomposing body. Gerald said it looked like a body that had been melted. You could see that it was real, and you could see that it had been very badly decomposed, but quickly. Gerald finds himself walking a couple of feet over to see if he can get a better look. He wanted to confirm to himself that this was actually real and not some kind of sick prank. As he was staring at this horror, he sees Brent walking over. Gerald quickly nips back to the hose and continues checking the gas levels. Brent reaches Gerald and just stands quietly next to him. Both men standing next to each other, 10 feet from a full rotting body. And neither of them speak a word. It's proper awkward silence.
There's an elephant in the room.
Oh my goodness, and it's rotten. Gerald makes an exerted effort not to let his eyes wander back to where the body is. So they just stand there in awkward silence with Brent kind of staring at Gerald staring at his hands while he's filling this tank. And that it feels how awkward this is, and he thinks this is going to take a little while to feel. Come on. So he's sort of standing there and he, moves his shoulders round and he thinks, oh my God, I can't believe what I've just seen. I actually feel like I'm going to be sick. So he thinks, right, don't look at the body. Don't look at the body. Don't look at the body. I'll look the other way. So he looks right. So he looks out to the right and he can see like the large wooded area, all the trees and that. And he thinks, oh, that's better. And then he thinks, what is that? And he can see a large blue tarpaulin laid out, just flat, laid out in the wooded area. And Brent and Gerald sort of thinks, why do I get the feeling that that is going to be something body part, dead body related? He just didn't have a good feeling about it. He thought, why would they lay out a big blue tarp in the woods? That's just weird. He realizes that Brent's looking at him because Brent then says to him, oh, we're having our septic tank dug up over there. Gerald kind of goes, oh, yeah. Looks straight back down because he said, I knew that was not a septic tank being dug up. There were no piles of dirt or anything. It was literally just a blue tarpaulin laid out. So he was thinking, now he thinks I'm suspicious. Damn it. So he, like I said, he puts his eyes down and he thinks, right, just don't look anywhere. Just look at the pipe, look at your hands, that's it. Look at your feet if you have to. Finishes his job, says, thanks very much, jumps in his truck, probably still with the hose dangling out the back of it as it drove off, and like peeled it out of there. He went straight back to his boss and he was like, listen, this is not right. It's not right for like crematoriums to just have like dead bodies laying out in the open. That's not right. So after feeling unheard, he thinks, do you know what? My boss took it last time. My boss took it to the police and the sheriff didn't do anything. There's not going to be any point in me doing it. They didn't really listen last time, or they didn't check it out. So he thought, I know what I'll do. I'll phone my Auntie Faye. And his Auntie Faye, as well as being a really good person, she was an assistant at the FBI agency at Walker County. And she believed Gerald straight away. 15th of February, 2002, we are now. Robert Hedden, an agent who works for environmental crimes, he received a message from an anonymous woman saying that she was walking her dog down by a creek in Noble, and her dog found a human body part. Now, this anonymous woman was indeed Auntie Faye, but shh, they don't know that now. Well, they know it now, I think, but and she wanted the police to act on what her nephew had seen. So to make sure that they took it seriously, Auntie Faye worked the system. She knew that if she approached environmental agency or environmental crimes agency, she knew that they would see that where she said her dog had found this body part was next to a stream, like a little river. Well, it wasn't really a river, it was a creek. I don't know. And she knew that they would think, well, that's potentially going to pollute all the local streams. It's going to put humans in danger. And she knew that they would act and they would investigate it. So that was kind of the way she was like, look, we need to work it this way, and then someone will actually go and check it out. Robert did think of all this. He did think it's right next to a stream. If it wasn't, it would be a job for the sheriff's office. But because it's next to a stream, I have to go and check it out. Because another reason was because he thought, looking at this where she said she found it, it's right next to that crematorium, and they could be, if they've dumped like a few body parts or something in the creek, what else could they be dumping in there? They could have dumped a load of formaldehyde in the water, things like that, and that's going to poison people. So it's probably nothing, but we'll go and check it out anyway. So Robert and his partner Larry went off to check out the stream and the area surrounding the crematory. They didn't want to cause any alarm, like I said before. They didn't. It could be a hoax. It could be
just an honest mistake.
Honest. Oh no, that's my foot. Oh, okay. I wondered where I dropped that. That kind of thing. But they didn't want to bring like any kind of attention about like body parts being found. If it was nothing to do with Tri-State, it could have also been like a murder. Do you know what I mean? That Tri-State Crematory know nothing about. So when Robert and Larry get there, they think, we don't want to cause, alarm or anything. We'll just innocently go to this creek, check it out, see what we can see, be done with it. So they park down the road and then they decide to walk in. So as they're walking, they enter the huge 16 or so acre plot of the Marsh family land, and they begin walking through the woods. These woods are proper thick and dense. They're really difficult to see too far through. And they're walking and they're looking around, and it was difficult because there was a lot of leaves all covering the ground, and because the trees were so dense, there was obviously a lot of leaves. So they were kind of, kicking the leaves around and looking, and they checked all down by the stream. But after a while, they hadn't seen anything, they hadn't found anything, so they started heading on back to the car. As they're walking back, Robert can see this brown, shiny rock. But it looks weird. He thinks it's a weird looking rock, like it's really out of place, like there's no other rocks like it around it. So he goes up to it and looks, and when he leans down, checks it out, he says, and I quote, "Holy shit, that's a human skull." So they immediately think, right, 911. So they call 911 and they're like, yeah, we've found a human skull. We need to get some deputies out here. So there were some detectives that showed up, and Greg is a Georgia bureau. He works as an agent. Sorry, I'll start that again. Greg is an agent for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or GBI.
Not quite the FBI.
Quite the FBI, the GBI. He gets a call too. So Greg's thinking bones found behind a crematorium makes sense. It could be a whole reason, there could be a whole reason behind why there would be bones. It could be, something's been misplaced. It could be that some of their machinery broke and they thought.
I'm so shocked about this, because if their family member had died and taken them to this crematorium and then gone,
yeah,
oh yeah, your mum's skull's been found down by a river, but don't worry, it was just a mistake. They misplaced the skull. You
wait. Honestly, if you think this is strange, you wait. Yeah. Greg had recently, like as in 2 days before, he'd just turned 40. So I was listening to an interview that he did, and he said, I actually thought it was a prank, because I just thought, you're not just gonna like get reports of like pieces of body, like people of bodies in a pile, and then like there's a skull in the woods. Like it's just, that doesn't happen. So he actually thought he was being pranked. He was ready for it, but he thought, all right, let him do it. Let him prank me. I'll go down there. So Greg goes down. When he gets there, he starts looking around and he says, all right, where's the skull? They show him the skull and he's like, right, okay, no prank. That is a genuine skull. They obviously, the police notify Brent and say, listen, we are all here. We have found a skull on your property and we need to have a look round.
We need a word.
We need to have a word, mate. Do you mind? They said that Brent was just kind of standing there looking wide-eyed and terrified. And he was stood with a couple of officers and agents while the others kind of had a closer look at the skull and that kind of thing. So this skull that they found actually had some big like staples in the jaw. And so straight away they realized that the reason that staples are in the jaw is it's a procedure done by morticians.
So the mouth doesn't flop open.
Yeah, to keep someone's mouth closed while they're attending their own funeral. So they instantly knew by that that this was a skull from someone who had been through a funeral home. So they'd had a funeral and all that. Rather than
a murder.
Someone had murdered someone and dumped them in the woods behind the crematory. So they were like, okay, we'll speak to the local coroner. So they got the local coroner, who was part of now this team of investigators. He's looking, and he's looking at the skull, and obviously he explains about this staple thing, and he said, no, this is a person that's been through a funeral. He also says, oh, wait a minute, bends down, picks up another very small bone, or 10, and says, these are all human finger and toe bones as well. And the police were like, right, okay, listen, guys, spread out. Let's widen our search area a bit rather than just where this skull was found. Let's just have a look round. So they're like, all right. So they go and start doing that. They find a shipping box nearby, laying amongst like the leaves and branches and everything. This shipping box is about 2 feet wide, 1 foot deep, and about 6 foot long. So very similar to a coffin. And they're like, what's in here then? And they open it. And inside was a small, badly decomposed, elderly black man. And he was partially mummified. While they're standing there thinking, what the hell is going on? Why is there a whole body here? They see that his suit that he's wearing, and was obviously intended to be cremated in, starts moving.
Oh.
And the sleeve of his suit bulges and moves more violently. And then all of a sudden, a rat appears from outside the sleeve and legs it, runs off into the nearby leaves.
Ugh.
Greg walks over to Brent Marsh, and he looks at him and he says, listen, Brent, we've got a problem here. We've just found a casket with a whole body in it. I'm gonna need you to open up all these buildings. We need to do a full search. Brent doesn't say anything. He just looks at Greg and just sort of goes, all right. Gets his keys. He's just staying silent the whole time. He just looks like a deer caught in the headlights. So Greg says, open up this one first. So Brent gets his keys out, he goes over, he unlocks the door, and then just stands there. Greg pushes the door to have a look inside, but it won't open more than about a foot. Something is blocking the door. Greg gets out his torch, or flashlight, and peers through the foot crack. This room is about 60 feet by 60 feet. Inside, blocking the door from opening fully, were human bodies. Lots and lots of human bodies piled high in all different stages of decay. Some had clothes on, some naked, some just in rags. Some were fresh and recently deceased. Some were completely rotted. Unfortunately, Greg instantly recognised recognises one of the bodies. This was someone that he knew. This body was, in fact, Luther Mason, who had died just a few months earlier. Greg knew Luther's family well and had known about his funeral, that, like I say, that had just been a matter of a couple of months before. Greg can't believe it. He demands right then and there that Brent open all of the other buildings. And they did. And again and again, these bodies were full to the brim with bodies stacked on top of each other. Greg asks Brent if he can identify who these bodies are. Brent acknowledges and says he knows who they are and he's got it all written down. But when they start, Brent very quickly gets confused. He starts making mistakes with people's names and he's saying, oh no, that's not Mrs. So-and-so. This is Mrs. So-and-so over here. And they just said, Brent, like Greg was like, Brent, what the hell? And
I was going to say, I don't think that's the thing they should be focusing on. Do you know who these bodies are?
Yeah. And Brent just says, well, that's all I can do. Meanwhile, the agents are continuing to search the area in the woods. They find more and more and more bodies in amongst the leaves, more and more and more. They come across a small pond that was almost full of skeletons, just in amongst the water, with bits of flesh and skin floating around the edges of the pond. Huge pits full of bodies. And they said it was the closest thing that they'd ever known to a horror movie. Some bodies were so fresh that they looked like someone was just laying down to take a nap in the woods. And some were bloated and full of feasting insects. In total, they found 339 bodies. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today, because there's so much more that comes into this.
Gosh. Well, so what have they been using the propane gas for then?
Do you know what? I'm glad you said that.
Cremated.
I'm glad you said that, because that was my exact word for that. That was my exact question. What the hell were they using it for then? Because they weren't using it to cremate bodies. I know.
Gosh.
I know. It's it's mad. This
you
story
did say to me, you did say to me, I said, what's the story about? Is it a murder one? And you was like, no, it's not murder. It's not cryptid. It's not ghosty. It's just mental.
Yeah. It's so hard to put it into
a category,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's just like we know who's done it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many.
I wonder what crime that is as well.
That's coming in part 2.
I bet it's not a crime, is it? Maybe, I don't know.
But well, you'll have to wait till part 2, because honestly, we're gonna go through
I've
this.
got a lot of questions.
Good. I might answer a lot of them in part 2.
Yeah, maybe.
You'll have to see.
Yeah.
You'll have to wait and see.
All right then.
I'm glad that actually, I was going to say I'm glad most of the gross bit is over, but yeah.
No, if they've only found 300 and something bodies and the episode's House of 1,000 bodies, I feel like we've still got some to go.
Wow. You'll have to wait and see.
All right then.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
No, thank you. I've enjoyed that so far.
Good. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. So, oh no,
Fucked up already.
fucked it up already, innit? If I'd done this before, I'd know. Fuck's sake.
If we were professionals.
I know. If only we were professionals, Sarah. Can you imagine what it'd be like? Such a good podcast. However.